Let's start then with Dr. Eleanor M. Green, formerly Dean of the Texas A&M University College of Veterinary Medicine and Biomedical Sciences. She's a diplomat of the American College of Veterinary Internal Medicine and the American Board of Veterinary Practitioners. She's also led a trio of national veterinary organizations, each time becoming the first woman to do so. And today she will tell us how the merging of human and animal medical research could lead to amazing advances for anything that walks, talks, or breathes. Please welcome Dr. Eleanor Green.
Hello, my name is Dr. Eleanor Green, and I am the only veterinarian in a long line of physicians. And that gives me a perspective to share with you today in the Imagine Solutions 2021 conference as we try to find solutions for tomorrow. The perspective is about the convergence of frontiers in veterinary and human medicine and how that can transform your health. We hear a lot about health today: meditation, yoga, doctor's visits, exercise. And when we look at it, most of the healthy lifestyle focus is on diet, exercise, and regular checkups. But there's something very important missing. And this provides opportunities for us for even greater health. And with that, there are three components I'd like to share with you. One is the role of animals in society and their impact on our health. The second is global health, as we share the planet together. And the last is mutually advancing healthcare. When we start with the role of animals in society, I want to talk about a survey of fifth graders. When they were asked, what are the most important issues in the world, you know what they said? They said, welfare of animals, number one. Number two was protecting the environment. And number three was caring for people. Now that's an interesting priority list, isn't it? Another point is that was a 2009 survey, and those fifth graders are now 22-year-olds. They're Gen Z. They're entering the workforce. They're contributing to society, and society is changing. And one of the ways that society is changing is in the societal views of animals. We used to talk about pet owners, and now we say pet parents. We used to talk about pets, and now they're often referred to as fur kids. And millennials are often using pets, their animals, as starter families, and some are even choosing them as their permanent families. This is so profound that it's adversely affecting the sale of Pampers. But don't worry, there's a substitute in doggy diapers, so the retail market goes on. Now you might expect this out of a millennial when you start asking them about when they're going to have your grandkids. Another interesting point is that 23% of those surveyed said they love their dog more than their significant other. Now that's 23% of you, and that does not include those that are undecided. 68% of you own a pet. You're among the 85 million pet-owning families, and you all spend $109 billion a year on pet expenditures. This is big for retail. You see articles about pets everywhere. This was a Southwest magazine, and it was the best kind of friend. One more reason to love dogs. They give us something people can't. If you've been watching commercials lately, you'll see the majority of them have animals in them. And it doesn't have to be about animal products. It's about anything, because people relate to animals, and the people in the marketing industry know that. Now, we know that animals can sell trucks, and we know that animals can sell beer. But does the human-animal relationship really matter? Well, there's an organization called HABRI, which is the Human Animal Bond Research Institute, which set out to prove just that. They fund research that looks at the effect of animals on people and their health. And with this video, I want to show you one example of that.
Discover relief from fatigue, depression, and stress. Discover Dog. Prescription strength Dog is the non-harmful treatment that is shown to lower blood pressure and risk of heart disease, prevent allergies in children, reduce stress levels, decrease anxiety and depression, strengthen your immune system, and increase social interaction. Side effects may include Talking in ridiculous dog voices, picking up poop, making funny faces, being jealous of your dog kissing other people, pretending your dog has a job and has to pay rent, excessive social media posts, laying on the floor pretending to die to see if your dog comes to help you, having full-on discussions with your dog, feeling guilty if you don't tell your dog you love them before you leave the house, saying bless you when your dog sneezes, calling your dog by names other than its actual name, congratulating your dog's bowel movements. Discover better health. Ask your veterinarian about dog.
As a result, puppies and kittens can be a prescription for depression and can hopefully decrease the use of drugs in today's society. Human-animal interactions decrease depression, loneliness, and they enhance social support and general well-being. In psychiatric inpatients, animal-assisted therapy resulted in significant increase in interactions with other patients. Social isolation and loneliness, human-animal interactions provide bigger connections, and they decrease loneliness and depression. In 2019 was the first ever summit on social isolation and companion animals. It was held in DC. Now that was pre-COVID. Imagine what that conference would be like now after we've experienced COVID and being in our homes with pets. Depression in residents and nursing homes decreased over the course of 2 years in elderly residents when there was a resident dog. Alzheimer's patients, they smile more, they're less hostile to their caretakers, and they're more socially communicative. Post-traumatic stress disorder, animal benefits are many. They decrease the signs of PTSD, they decrease the signs of depression, they increase life satisfaction, and they increase psychological well-being. And they also increase social activities and decrease social isolation. And another point is that it decreases their absenteeism from work. They have better lives when they interact with animals. The homeless also benefit from animals. The animals provide companionship, belonging, and safety. And some have questioned whether or not they should have animals as they live in a homeless environment. The answer is a resounding yes, and they will actually take care of their animals before they take care of themselves. Animals mean a lot to children, and they have a profound emotional response on children. And when you see this young boy who is getting his first puppy, it's easy to understand how animals and children connect and the positive effect that animals have on children. Now that's touching, and that's a happy little boy. On the other hand, animals are helpful in decreasing depression and grief in children and teenagers. They ease a sense of loneliness, and they turn to animals during times of grief. I was giving a talk on the human-animal bond one time, and a teacher had asked their students to draw a picture of what the human-animal bond meant. And this middle picture was the one that I picked out of the whole class to share with you. When the world leaves you, they never will. And that's profound. Children with autism, calmer, better communication, improved communication, and reduced stress from animal contact. Cancer patients, especially pediatric cancer patients with animal-assisted therapy, there are many positive benefits that you see here, and they alleviate psychological distress not only in the children but also in their parents, and it facilitates their coping with the cancer that they've been stricken with, and it promotes well-being throughout hospitalization. And it's not just children with cancers, it's also adults with cancer. They get a lot of benefit from animal-assisted therapy. And if you want to add one more benefit, animals can be trained to detect cancer, and some of them are even more accurate than the routine traditional means that we use in some situations. Allergies and immunity. It's been shown that allergies are decreased when you have contact with young children with animals. And teenagers who lived with a cat during the first year of life had a 48% lower risk than their peers of allergies. This goes on also prenatally, and that with prenatal exposure to dogs, it can decrease the occurrence of allergies and also the development of atopy. The American Heart Association knows this. In fact, they have a statement that says that pet ownership improves heart health, and pet owners have better heart parameters, lower blood pressure than non-pet owners. And owning a cat makes one more likely to be alive 1 year after a heart attack, and non-cat owners had a 40% greater likelihood of death. Now that's motivation for having a cat. The same is true of hospitalized patients with heart failure. A therapy dog improves their heart parameters as well and lowers their anxiety. The National Institute of Health knows this too, and they have shown that studies of human health should definitely consider the absence or presence of a pet in a home and the relationship with that pet as a significant and variable in research. And they recommend that any study of human health should be considered not comprehensive if the animals with which they share their environment are not included. They simply have that great of an impact on our health. And so, puppies and kittens, prescriptions for life. Now, dogs have become family members, and we've said that dogs have gone from the barnyard to the house to the bedroom. But it's more than that. They've actually gone into our beds, and over half of dogs and over 2/3 of cats share our beds. And it's not just one cat or one dog. Often it's many. Well, when we share these environments, it's not limited to the bedroom. It also goes throughout the house and even at our dinner tables. So with shared environments becomes shared diseases. And it's something we all need to be mindful of. We do share diseases. When we say that, how many of you said, "Oh, those animals make us sick"? The truth is, the diseases are shared both ways. Sometimes we do transmit diseases to animals, and sometimes they transmit to us. But we do share diseases. We also share environments and suffer the effects of environmental influences. For example, you smoke, I smoke, we smoke, and animals get the same effect to secondhand smoke as people do. And in veterinary medicine today, we are seeing a rise in toxicosis due to marijuana. And this is both recreational and medicinal marijuana. So those are some of the things that I think are important to underscore the impact on our health of animals and how society views them. The next phase that I'd like to go into is Global One Health as we share a planet together. What global health means, it's the inextricable link among animal, human, and environmental health, and that extends locally to globally. So we'll start with a question. Why do you vaccinate your dog for rabies? Your first answer might be to protect your dog, and that certainly is true. But it's so much more than that. It's protecting your entire family because rabies is universally fatal in animals and people. And zoonotic diseases are those that are shared between people and animals, and 60% of the known infectious diseases are, in fact, zoonotic. Emerging viruses today, we know a lot about them today, but 75% of the new and emerging infectious viral diseases are zoonotic. And every 4 months, a new infectious zoonotic disease emerges that originates in animals. There's a long list, but the two that jump off the page are Ebola and coronavirus, or SARS. We certainly have experienced both. And if we remember back to 2014, when Ebola entered this country through Mr. Duncan as he landed in Dallas, Texas with Ebola. And he was hospitalized. And his healthcare worker, Nina Pham, has become famous. Her name is a household word because she contracted Ebola. Now, she had a dog. And when they arrived at her apartment to disinfect the apartment, what did they do? Well, I'll tell you what they did in Spain when this woman had Ebola and they went to her house and she had a dog. They summarily killed the dog. And she said, after she recovered from Ebola, that the loss of her treasured pet was more traumatic than contracting Ebola. So they arrive at Nina Pham's apartment and here is a dog. What do? Does this animal transmit? Does it have Ebola too? Could it just transmit the virus on its hair coat? We didn't know at that time. So what we did at Texas A&M, we have a veterinary emergency team, and we sent 2 of our team members, and they stayed in isolation with Bentley, Nina Pham's dog, for 21 days. And during that period of time, they tested the dog to see if it was contracting Ebola or not. And fortunately, it did not. It was safe. We learned something from that experience, but Nina Pham and Bentley were reunited afterwards, and we learned something about Ebola in that process, a way that veterinary medicine and animal medicine work together. Now, we do know that Ebola has origin in animals, and that's the fruit bat. We also know that Ebola continues to be an international threat for all of us. As a result of that, again, at Texas A&M, we created a global One Health initiative, and we focused on infectious diseases and especially pandemics. And each year we have a global pandemic summit, and that ends up in white papers, and the topics are very pertinent. For example, the growing threats, global leadership and how important it is. We've just experienced that. Community leadership and collaboration, we've seen how important that is. The most recent summit was looking at pandemics and threats in the 21st century. This was November 2019, pre-COVID, except it really wasn't, because COVID was already brewing, and how important that is. We don't know a lot about the animal origin of COVID. We're still suspecting the fruit bat. There are other animals that might be involved, and we continue to explore, and I'm sure we'll get those answers. What we do know is that looking at genetic analysis of receptors, we can predict the susceptibility of different animals to COVID, and this chart shows that very well. Now I want to point out two animals, the cat, medium, and the dog, low. And yet already we have had dogs and cats contract COVID. What we also know is that they got the disease from people, not the other way around, and there's been no evidence of animal to human transmission of COVID at this point. We also know that a Bronx Zoo tiger tested positive for COVID, and just recently, early in 2021, the first known cases in non-human primates occurred. All these living together, mild signs, and the source was a member of the wildlife healthcare team who was asymptomatic but a carrier of COVID. So, Global One Health includes animals and people, and to keep our world healthy, we have to consider both. And we're very excited because for the very first time in 2018, the national strategy document that was signed by the President addressed humans, animals, and the environment. And again in 2019, biological threats to humans, animals, agriculture, and the environment are among the most serious threats facing the U.S. and the international community. And in today's interconnected world, biological incidents have the potential to cost thousands of lives for people and to cause significant anxiety and to disrupt travel and trade. We've just experienced that with COVID. So, Global One Health, we share a planet. Now, what are some ways that we can work with human and veterinary medicine to advance healthcare individually? We live in one of the most transformational times in history. Things are changing so fast, and animals and their families have access to technologies in healthcare once considered just emerging. And I won't go through all these because I'm sure you've seen them before in other talks. But what I will say is that in the latest talks in medicine, the topics that are there in reimagining the future of medicine are also the topics that are relevant in veterinary medicine. And as we envision a future of healthcare, we must include animal healthcare and human healthcare with interprofessional collaboration to keep us all healthy on this shared planet. So sometimes in human medicine, they make the advances and we take advantage of them in veterinary medicine. This actually happens most often. There are also times when advances in veterinary medicine will advance human medicine. So again, if we work together, we'll all move ahead more quickly. And what we're all after, from birth to old age to death, is systems healthcare that's measured and quantified, continuous and proactive, outcome-based, transparent, client-driven, technology-enhanced, database integrated, and connected. One example, the healthcare journey begins at birth. And with the collection of umbilical stem cells, we can bank those stem cells and they can be used throughout a person's or throughout an animal's life to enhance their health. A big example is digital health. Cover of Time magazines, Apple Watches can do so much. Technology review, the measured life, and that's where we are. And this is going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And as we embrace the digital health revolution, just imagine the possibilities of how we can enhance health. Digital health means healthcare measured, monitored, and connected. And we can measure a lot of the healthcare parameters. We can collect them, we can analyze them, we can use them to drive our decisions. And this is the future of healthcare in animals and people. And the customer experience is definitely going to incorporate these technologies. How many of you are wearing devices? I have 3. I have 3 devices right now. I could have more. And I love them. These digital devices are constantly upgraded, constantly changing, just like your Apple Watch. It's a very competitive space, but please know that technology evolves to be faster, cheaper, and smaller. So what's around the corner is even better than what we have today. But don't wait. This has attracted investors, and they've poured over $30 billion into startups at the intersection of health and technology since 2011. And the same thing is true in the veterinary space, with many startups in pets being funded. Give you another example. We at Texas A&M have an event called Aggie's Invent, where we bring students from all around campus in different disciplines, engineering students and veterinary students and medical students and whatever they are, they all come together, and in a small group they surround around one veterinary problem, and then they come up with a solution. One example I'll share with you is SkyPaws, and this is a monitoring device that collects a lot of the different parameters, can be housed on the web, can be accessed by the veterinarian, and can be used on many species. And this was done by students, and they now formed a company which is getting funding. It's a veterinary student and an ag business student. They came together and created a business out of this Aggie's Invent. So here's where we're going with this. In your car, you have a check engine light. There are computers in cars that can tell you what's wrong. And that's exactly what we're doing in humans and animals. So it's OnStar for the body. Early detection of disease, medical alerts, emergency responses, integrated data, all through digital health. This builds on what we already have in GPS tracking and activity and Fitbits and all the monitoring devices that we already have in the human and pet markets. This is one example. Whistle with GPS monitoring tells you where your pet is at all times. This is all going to be made better. We're going to go from where we are today to a much higher level because of cloud diagnostics, Cloud DX. And this is science fiction becoming reality and allows our health to be connected. This is where it can all be uploaded on the cloud and accessible at any time of day, 24/7. This is going to be especially important as animals are jet setters, because we'll have access to their medical records worldwide, wherever they are. And even their health papers can be created virtually. And be ready, because when these pets land, they will be housed in pet-friendly settings around the world. It's not just pets. These cows are all wearing monitoring devices. And with these monitoring devices, many decisions can be made about their health. One outstanding feature is that 3 days before, a cow could be detected as being ill. 3 days before that, by traditional means, these monitoring devices can tell that the cow is going to get sick or is in the early phases of illness. This provides great care so they can have happy, healthy cows with these monitoring devices. And the same thing's true with horses. So animal health care then again can be connected. It can all be team-based, and all these data can come together to keep our animals healthy, to drive decisions, and can even drive us to a veterinary clinic when we need to go, or drive us to veterinary care, because it's expected that over half of those calls to the veterinarian are going to be virtual. And that leads us to the next subject, virtual care or telemedicine. This is really advancing in human medicine and has taken off tremendously in COVID. Some people were a little reluctant, and now that COVID has forced people in, they're more comfortable with it, and this is a wonderful way to advance care in people. But virtual care or telemedicine, they're kind of interchangeable, is the natural evolution of healthcare in a digital world. So we're now using veterinary virtual care or telemedicine animals as well for many different purposes that are seen on this slide. And this is going to do nothing but grow. It's also advanced because of COVID faster than it would have otherwise. One of the positive features of virtual care in veterinary medicine and in human medicine is that you can connect specialists in every single veterinary specialty throughout the world. So you can put all the experts in one room together taking care of your animal. These devices can also help us connect in real time with pet parents as healthcare events are occurring. For example, an animal that's hospitalized. The animal's out of anesthesia now, he's doing well, he's in ICU. All those things can update the pet parent on a minute-by-minute basis. We at Texas A&M hired Dr. Lori Teller, who was the first telemedicine veterinarian in academia in the world, I believe. And we did this because we think this is important for pet health care and for the veterinary profession. So we really felt that it was important that students are exposed so that when they graduate and deploy throughout the country, that they will take these abilities with them and can advance virtual care widely. Many businesses are jumping in this. The telehealth providers are growing in leaps and bounds. Some of these devices do more than just telemedicine. You can make appointments and you can talk to your doctor and you can manage all parts of vaccinations, all parts of your animal's health care can be managed through these devices. Here's another component that we really should underscore because we can reach the underserved with telemedicine. For example, this woman has a cat and she may not be able to ever get that cat to the veterinarian and she relies on others to do that. And now we can bring the doctor to her home through telemedicine. The same is true in rural communities where sometimes it's hard to attract a veterinarian as it is to attract a physician. And so we can take veterinary care to rural communities as well. What an asset that is to help serve the underserved. A group of us got together and formed a veterinary virtual care association that's similar to the American Telemedicine Association, and we did that to advance virtual care and to help the veterinarians be able to use this new technique more quickly, more effectively, and more efficiently. So, the future holds veterinary virtual care, veterinary telemedicine is going to grow in leaps and bounds and is growing in leaps and bounds just like in human medicine. Now, some worry about if this is too impersonal. The iPhone will see you now. But the reality is that when technologies are used well, care is even more personalized. And we have a lot of feedback from clients who have used telemedicine and used these digital technologies who tell us that care is better and they feel attended to even more personally than they did before. So we're not going to replace doctors. We're not going to replace veterinarians. We're going to give them broader reach and more skills and more abilities. Other things that are happening is Alexa, Dr. Alexa Health. This is happening in human and animal medicine. Alexa, manage my medication, fill my prescriptions. This is going gangbusters as well. Changing gears a little bit, health care for animals rivals that for people. At Texas A&M, we have a diagnostic imaging and cancer treatment center that rivals the like centers in human medicine. So we're able to treat cancer, we're able to do advanced imaging, and interestingly, and one thing that makes this profession so much fun, is that we can image anything that can go through the bore of these imagers or the bore of a tomotherapy unit. We can treat anything, we can image anything if we can fit it in the bore. Another way that we can really help human medicine is that the MRI machines on the human side are calculated for adults, not for children. So we can create the sequences with a small animal like a dachshund that can be translated immediately to a pediatric patient, and we are sharing those with human hospitals now. We think about functional MRIs in people and how prevalent they're becoming, and yet an animal has to be anesthetized in order to go through an MRI, and so functional MRI has been beyond our scope. There's a researcher that has now trained dogs to sit very, very, very still throughout an MRI imaging sequence, and then she can also put different images in front of the dog to see how the brain responds. So we're going to learn more and more about the brain function of the dog, just as we are in humans. Now, there was a company that came out, and it was called More Than a Wolf, and their hypothesis was that they could communicate with dogs and we could tell more of what they were thinking and saying. They were ahead of their time in 2013, so a cautionary tale is all these new things that come out don't work on day one, but maybe one day that will be true. And can the same thing happen in veterinary medicine that is now happening in human medicine with the brain-computer interface? I would say so. And if you remember, a lot of the news has talked about these wearable exoskeletons and how the brain interface has allowed this gentleman to move all 4 paralyzed extremities. And we have a lot of examples in veterinary medicine where this could be useful as well. So this is a way that we are going to benefit from advances in human health care on the animal side. There's a way that humans are going to benefit from advances on the veterinary side because we can treat dogs with drugs that are not yet approved for use in people, promising drugs. They're safe, and so people can have access to cancer treatments that they can't get themselves in the United States because they haven't gone through all of what needs to be approved by the FDA. And so we have clinical trials in animals, and this is Sadie Watson, a dog that had a glioblastoma, and we collaborate at Texas A&M with MD Anderson, and we provide these promising drugs to these dogs, and then we track the benefit. And what this will do is fast pace these good drugs so that they can be used in people much more quickly than they would otherwise. Great examples of veterinary medicine and human medicine working together. Here's another one. We have a dog aging project at Texas A&M. We all know that dogs don't live as long as people. So we can study the aging process in dogs, and we can actually come to an endpoint in a reasonable length of time, whereas it's not the case in people. More to come on this project, and hopefully this will help us all live longer. Genomics is another area that we're all benefiting from, and there's a lot out there about genomic testing for predisposition disease and do we want to know our future. But there are tests in dogs that can certainly say, is this the right animal? They can verify who the dog is, and they can talk about family history of disease and can predict diseases for the future. So genetic testing is also growing in veterinary field. This was a product that appeared on Shark Tank, and this is like 23andMe for animals, and it's called Base Paws, and she did get funding, and this company is doing well. Another piece of genomics is CRISPR. CRISPR allows gene editing to reprogram biology away from diseases in the aging process. In other words, we can find a genetic disease, we can find which genes cause the disease, and then we can reprogram it so that you don't have that disease anymore. And that's called precision medicine. And there's a tremendous future for that as we see a large number of genetic diseases in people and animals. Here's one example. Duchenne's muscular dystrophy is another example. This is a genetic disease that affects primarily boys, and they universally die before they reach their 20s or in their early 20s. What we also know is that this disease affects golden retrievers. And by studying golden retrievers, we have located the genetics of this disease, and we have actually done CRISPR on this disease, and we have a promising drug that is now in clinical trials in people. Imagine all the different parents who have lost a child, or all the different people who have lost a friend from this devastating disease that now, because veterinarians and human physicians are working together, we will find a cure. Just some smatterings of examples. Robotics are being advanced in human medicine. They're also being advanced in veterinary medicine, and robotic surgery is certainly occurring in veterinary medicine as well. And there are other ways that robotics can be used, not only to help in access to electronic records in hospitals, but in inventory control, and there are just many ways that robotics can help us be more efficient and more effective. Uber is getting into everything, and now health as well, but they're not stopping at human health. They also have Uber pets. So imagine if you're unable to get your pet to the veterinary hospital, that Uber Pets could help you get that animal there. All right, I want to end with 3D printing. 3D printing in healthcare, this could be in a talk all to itself, but I want to give you an example of 3D printing in veterinary medicine. This is Andrea Stryker, and she has a dog named Werner. It's a 2-year-old dog, and she loves this dog. And one day she noticed that he was showing neurologic signs, and so she took him to her veterinarian, and he found this bone tumor of the skull. He didn't know what to do. He thought the dog should probably be euthanized because it was already affecting the brain, and she would not quit. And she brought Werner to Texas A&M University, and we didn't know what to do at first, and we studied this dog. She said, do anything you possibly can. And so we 3D printed Werner a skull so that when his skull was removed, along with that tumor, we were able to replace it with his 3D printed skull that was formed just to fit him. Here he is, 2 years after surgery. She is so happy. She calls him Werner the Wonder Dog. She loves Texas A&M so much. She has his ears colored maroon, which is our school colors, and she takes him around in animal-assisted therapy to help other people who had terrible challenges in their health, and Werner makes them happier. Another example of what we can do together. So animals and their families, again, have access to many technologies, and these technologies are going to continue to get bigger and better. And we can work together to make them occur more quickly. So veterinary health care has never been better. In fact, the reason for this is because of the societal view of animals, and people care about their animals just like their family members, and they expect the best and they will support the best. And as a result, animal health care rivals human health care. In the next decades, human and veterinary health care will be barely recognizable because we're changing so fast. And so when we review what we've been talking about and start looking toward the solutions for these opportunities, not problems, but opportunities, we know that animals are changing in society. People look at them differently. Society views animals differently, and they impact our health, and we know it. And so we need to be cognizant of that. Global One Health helps us understand how we all share the planet together, and we must be mindful of animal, human, and environmental health for all of us to be healthy, and that we need to work together to advance veterinary and human health care. So what's missing? What's missing beyond diet, exercise, and regular visits? Animals. You'll be healthier with animals. So the big idea is the role of animals in our lives and our health, and the solution is for us all to work together, for human and veterinary medicine to work together even more in interprofessional collaboration